We're live! Hi, everyone! Hi. Oh, they can't see you. Wave with your other hand. we're very close.
I can do whatever I want with this hand, and no one knows.
This is a solid opening. We're doing so good already. Hopefully we're live. If you're in the chat and you can hear us, then just let us know that you can hear us. That would be neat. It says that we're live, so that's
also
good.
Let us know if you can't hear us.
Yeah, let us know if you can't hear us, because it wouldn't be the first time I did a stream.
Also, it did impossible to hear that question, but it's okay.
We're off to a running start. Everything's doing good. We haven't even started drinking the rum yet.
Morality.
This will be fun. Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to Shannon Q. We're incredibly professional here over at the Shannon Q channel, and this is Paul from Paulogia.
Hello.
Say hi, Paul, and tell everyone where they can find you.
Well, right now I'm on Shannon Q's channel, so that's where you can find me.
You found him. Here he is. Good job, everyone. You found him. Paul has a wonderful channel. It's linked in my description if you'd like to go check him out. He does all kinds of wonderful content on young earth creationism, and lately you've been doing a lot more textual criticism and internal critique of Christianity in general and the Bible, and he does wonderful content, and I think you should check him out. Also, look how cute he is. Isn't he adorable? He's so cute.
I'm usually a cartoon, and I'm sorry that I'm not today.
He's cute. Don't get thirsty. He's mine. Very serious stream. Actually, it will be. I'm really looking forward to it. So, Paul's visiting me here from Calgary, and we're on lockdown, of course, just like everybody else is. Hopefully, you guys are all happy and healthy and dealing with it emotionally okay. And we asked what people would like us to cover. So we were hoping to get a video that would be 10 minutes or less, but what we got requested the most is the debate between Matt Dillahunty, who's actually a friend of both of ours, and David Wood, who has done responses to Paul's morality video. You may want to explain that. You might not. We've got a lot to cover, so go watch his channel. You can go see it.
Yeah, look for on if you want. Yeah, if you care more later on my channel, the morality challenge with David Wood and Inspiring Philosophy and me.
Right. Yeah. So we thought it might be interesting. So we went to watch it. And actually, I think we both watched it separately already. So we went to watch it together again. And we were thinking about doing it. And we were getting more and more requests to do it. And then we watched Braxton Hunter's review.
Who?
On Braxton. You know who Braxton is. Don't pretend you don't know who Braxton is. He's such an... Oh my gosh. So we watched Braxton's review, and they're seeing how, I guess, the other side responded, made us want to critique it even more, to go over some of the things that we had. So Paul has been diligently writing down timestamps as we've been watching it, and there's lots to go over, and we're super excited. So if you guys have any questions as we go along, please send super chats. Oh, I see that there's one already. It says, "Hi, Mom and Dad, I'll be home soon." Hi, yes, get home. Get your butt home. It's past curfew. So we're going to get right into it because we're going to be covering a lot. A lot of it's probably going to be banter between me and Paul. It's going to be essentially like watching the two of us just sitting on our couch at home. Because these are the types of conversations that we have just day to day, I would say.
Try and keep it less yelly, not at each other, but we yell at screens a lot.
Yeah, we do. I get yelly at the TV. He paces. He paces around with his little notepad. It was adorable. It was so cute. So we're going to get started. So Paul had a specific spot that he wanted to start. And I messaged Matt last night about this too, Matt Dillahunty, because it was a point of frustration for both of us, especially watching Braxton's response. And yeah, so I'll let Paul introduce it because he's got it queued up. So why don't you get into it and then we'll go from there.
So the first thing, obviously, in a debate, the most important thing before it starts is what is the topic of the debate. And often that is something that is, debated over before the thing starts, having been involved in some debates myself. I came into this debate looking at the title, and hopefully some of you can read it on your screen. In case you don't believe me, I will read it out loud. The title of the video was what best explains ethics, God, or secular humanism. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. That's the title that is on the video. And then we will start off the video, see how we go.
Hey, today we're debating God, morality, and secular humanism. Which gives a better foundation for ethics, God, or secular humanism? Thanks for joining us. We are very excited for this epic debate, folks.
Went too far. We're adjusting sound at the same time. Apologies. Let me just play that again, because I got distracted.
Oh, I was adjusting the mic, not the...
Oh.
That wasn't the output for that. It was just our mic.
Nevertheless, I don't live stream, so everything's
I touched
shiny.
something and he panicked.
Well, she took my mouse
Today
away.
we're
Yeah.
debating
I took some.
God, morality, and secular humanism. Which gives a better foundation for ethics, God, or secular humanism?
So, what's his name? James
James
just said that what gives a better foundation for morality, and the topic that was in the title was what best explains ethics. These are different words. Let's carry forth and find out what David thought the title or what the debate was about.
And we'll demonstrate why that differentiation is important shortly after we get to this. Yeah.
Humanism or theism provides a better foundation for morality.
So that was secular humanism or theism. Secular humanism or theism, which provides a better foundation for morality. So David just repeated the same thing that James said, both of whom contradict the title of the video. And then we are going to jump
To Matt's point.
Bother showing up as long as opponents are going to try to present both sides in a fictional straw man. This started off as, hey, let's do which makes a better account of ethics, God or atheism. And I pointed out rightly that atheism isn't an ethical system.
So what you heard Matt just say was repeat the title of the video. Secular humanism or theism, which better explains ethics. So the problem here, I've been seeing debate reviews on both sides. There are some theist debate reviews jumping up and down about how great David did. There are some secular reviews jumping up and down about how great Matt did. The problem is, as I watched those, I realized these two men were not having the same debate.
Right.
They were not having the same debate at all.
No. Because one was going into what the foundation for even the concept of morality being tangible is. And the other was talking about ethical systems. And it's a difference between, is it epistemology and ontology?
Yes. So,
Yeah.
So Matt was debating epistemology. Mm-hmm. And that's the title of the debate, was very epistemological. How do we know what is best about ethics?
Right.
Whereas David was talking ontologically. He was talking about foundations of morality. So morality and ethics are not synonymous, and foundation and what best explains what we see are
Right.
not synonymous. So Matt was saying, hey, we observe this variety of ethics on our planet.
Yes.
What explains the observations that we have? This is a very scientific thing. It'd be like any scientific thing where you make an observation, you try and explain it. David wasn't attempting to do that at all. David wasn't making observations. He was saying, if morality is a real thing, what is it grounded in? So you can understand these two men, and we'll see it throughout, were talking past each other so badly that this was never a debate. It was two separate performance pieces that were in the same yellow room.
So people are saying that our
Explains
sound
the
is too low. So I'm not sure what to do with that. Apparently, it sounds like I'm yelling, which makes sense because it always sounds like I'm yelling.
Is it maybe I'm just too low?
No, I think it's the video itself is coming through low. So I'm just going to mess with my desktop. Oh, my desktop audio is already at the highest. Let's do this. Let's see if that helps. I'm just going to press play for a second. Hopefully you guys can let me know if it's any better. Oh, now it's coming up my speakers, so that's definitely not better. Goodness gracious. Sorry, everybody.
and that instead I should be defending
we can hear it
secular
okay on our
humanism,
end.
which is in fact
I'll
a
amp it up
system
on
that
my end.
addresses ethics and morality. I tried
So-
to.
And then we'll get back into it. Anyway, hopefully you guys can hear a little bit better now. So that I think is what's important. So explaining the difference between epistemology and ontology would be important. And I'm not particularly philosophical. So what I would say is that what David was talking about was, how do we even know morals are a thing? How do we found them? Like if we ask why, if we do what a 5-year-old does and ask why, when we finally hit that wall where we don't know the answer to the why question, he puts God in there. He says, well, God is why. And Matt says, well, we don't know why when we get to that wall. And asserting God doesn't change all of the answers to the whys all the way down that question, and the answers to the why.
Well, that's what he would say if they're debating ontology. But Matt actually didn't ever intend to even answer that question.
Right. No, I agree. I'm just talking about ontology. And like the epistemology would be, well, we see these things happening and we label them like ethical things to do. Why do we label them ethical things to do? Like, can we explain this through observations of behavior and psychology and how we interact with one another? And David was talking about why morality is even a thing, and Matt was talking about why we observe the things that we do.
To borrow from John Lennox, if there's a debate about there's a kettle boiling, what explains that?
Right.
Matt would be talking about the heating element and what the elevation was and the pressure and and this is very, very scientific things. And David would be debating, is it because grandma wanted tea?
Right. Yes.
Or something like, or like not attempting to address the science of it at all. He's addressing, I needed this for a recipe.
Right.
So yeah, it's whole different. So if you are a Christian and you thought your guy did great, he defended his position, but he didn't address Matt's. If you thought Matt did great, Matt didn't address David's position. I'm not sure what to do with James in this situation because he titled the debate one way. Mm-hmm. And then immediately introduced it a different way. So that is not great moderation.
Well, there's minutia too in the language. Like if you're not, I'm not philosophically literate. I'm gleaning all of these things through existing in this sphere. So it may seem indistinguishable to people, and I think like to the audience also. Like I'm gonna say like so many times. Every time I say like, take a drink.
Fudge.
You'll get hammered. So, to the audience, that's why I think a lot of people would have, aside from, you're rooting for your own side anyway or whatever, a lot of people wouldn't even understand the difference between the epistemology and the ontology of the question. Like, there was a point in time up until very recently that I can say that I didn't necessarily understand. I was just listening to the arguments and thinking they were talking about the same thing because they were both talking about morality without realizing that they were different things, which is, it may have been a mistake, but if it's not a mistake, it's kind of, it's not a great way to present. Like, it should have been like very, very clarified what they were talking about, like at the opening. So when he said foundations, I mean,
right.
It immediately, like to me and you, because we're scrutinized on this level so often. Like,
Right.
I think we're more attuned to
By David.
By David. By David, as a matter of fact, if you're Paul. So that, and you'll see it throughout. Like, they'll both get frustrated with each other and seem as though they're talking past each other. I still think Matt won. I think that there was many points in this debate where David, I could sense his frustration. But yeah, we can move on to the
and
next.
we'll go through it. So now we're jumping ahead into, we're going to pull out the sceptometer. Is that all right?
Yeah, I love the sceptometer.
All right.
Oh, wait till you get... as soon as he brought out the sceptometer, I may have moved it. Hopefully I didn't, because I pressed it to make sure.
Human beings have an internal
Sceptometer.
sceptometer.
I love it.
It measures our level of skepticism, and we can adjust our skeptometers. We can become more or less skeptical, depending on
Love
the
the
situation.
visual. It's
We
amazing.
turn to arguments for the existence of God, and we don't want to believe in God, so we set our skeptometers to maximum until we...
Yes, I need to say something because
That's
I don't
where I
like
intended
that.
to pause it.
I
We're
don't
good.
like it because he's he's framing this dishonestly in my mind. He's saying we don't want to believe in God. No, so he's couching what he's about to say in the assertion that people who are atheists, who are exploring moral questions, are like they're not coming to their conclusions about the existence of God, and in his case specifically a Christian God or any God. Honestly, they're conscientiously determining that they do not want to hold this conclusion. So they're increasing their skepticism about anything to an inordinate and unreasonable degree because they don't want to have that God exists as a conclusion. So they're being unfair in their assessments. And that's just not true. Like, how many atheists? I went out of my way to attempt to continue to hold God beliefs. So when people say things like that, it infuriates me.
I prayed with tears for a long time. Like, it cost me a lot. It would have been so much better if, like, I wanted Christianity to be very true. But I think one of our pet peeves, you and I both have, is when anyone on any side of any debate goes to motive.
Yes. As soon as you impugn the other side of a debate with motive, you're no longer talking about the ideas or the concepts in like a void of bias. You're imbuing them with specific bias so that people will perceive what you're saying a certain way. Now, we're all guilty of that to a certain degree. I'm sure you can pop up a million clips of me right now where I'm guilty of that too. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't make people aware of it, because I want people to be able to critique me in the same way and also approach the things that I say with that degree of skepticism and scrutiny. But in a debate like this, especially with this little sceptometer, like, I mean, props to him. He brought a prop to a debate on morality, and he seems to, like, I wonder how often he uses it. I don't watch a lot of David's stuff, but it's frustrating to me because that underlying assumption makes your argument when you haven't demonstrated that it's true. I could very much want to believe in a God and still approach these things with a degree of inordinate skepticism or no skepticism at all. Like, my degree of scrutiny has more to do with my inherent sort of internal dispositions than it does with my belief system. And saying that's the case is essentially saying that atheists are atheists because they're hyper skeptical because they have a predetermined conclusion that they want to hold. And you, David, wouldn't find it fair if I said on the opposite end of the spectrum that Christians are inordinately unskeptical and just accept everything that comes at them because they want to hold the conclusion that they already have. That's not fair. You shouldn't. I wouldn't use that as an argument because it's ridiculous.
Well, and it's irrelevant because obviously there are people who are you can hold any position for bad reasons.
Yes.
Any position at all, you can have terrible reasons. You can believe the earth is round for bad reasons.
Right.
So
yeah.
So that the fact that you can point out some examples on the other side that do that is irrelevant. And to the fact that he went to that, like, right up front.
Right.
But we're gonna
skip. Everybody get a drink. We're gonna be here for a while. We have so much to say.
Just gonna finish this clip.
End up denying obviously true premises like the universe began to exist or anything that begins to exist must have a cause. But then we turn to things like moral obligations and moral values, and we don't want to reject those. So all we do is we dial our skepticism down to minimum, and we get to the point where anything qualifies as evidence for what we want to believe.
So,
sorry.
What we want to believe is how we finish. So
yeah.
And that's not the part that I'm mad about. So you can finish what you're mad about.
Okay.
I'm mad about something else.
Because his entire argument hinges on that we just want to affirm our biases. That's essentially what he's saying. You don't want to believe in God. You do want to believe in morality. You dial your skepticism up and down based on your biases. So you want to believe in morality. So when I show you demonstrably that there's evidence that it's for God, you put your skepticism down because you won't accept my clear evidence because you're being less skeptical. Like, his entire goddamn thing is about impugning motives. It's the only reason it exists is to say, you're skeptical about this, but you're not skeptical about this, because if you were skeptical about this, you'd accept my evidence.
See, but he was so successful, he smuggled something in, he distracted you. This was actually, I think, a brilliant tact.
That's
because
easy
he
to do.
smuggled
Was
something
it
else.
shiny? It was
Yeah. Because what he said was, we all want to believe in moral truth so badly that we set our skepticism meter low.
Oh, yeah, see, I don't think there is
I
moral
don't
truth.
believe in moral truth. Matt doesn't believe in moral truth. Shannon doesn't believe in
don't.
moral truth. So we are not coming up with bad motives to accept the moral truth, because we don't.
He's not appealing to us, though.
Right.
He's appealing to people that believe that really
Right.
need to and
But
want
he
to
had
believe
us
that
with
there's
his
moral truth.
sceptometer. Even he smuggled in his first.
And I was so busy being pissed off about
Right.
the fact that he was telling people why they make determinations.
Right, that he-
I didn't like. Yeah, you're right. I blew right past that.
Yeah.
Because there were so many other things to be agitated about. We're like 5 minutes into this.
And we thought Matt was the magician. But he's not. All right, we're gonna jump. I think we will jump to.
Q. I started drinking when I read the title. That was a solid choice. I'll read this. There's another super chat too from
good.
Amber. We'll watch later. Reading the newest book in my favorite series, starting my transition soon. Amber, that's amazing. Hopefully, love you both.
Congrats.
Stay fabulous. And yeah, that's wonderful. I'm really glad. That's very affirming for you, and it's very exciting for me that you're getting that, Amber. Great. That's awesome. All right.
True, we believe in objective moral values even though there are none. We believe in moral obligations even though there are none. We believe in moral responsibility even though there is none. If our beliefs about morality do not correspond to reality, then our moral reasoning faculties are massively defective and can't be trusted.
Go. You go. Give me a minute to formulate. Go ahead.
So what he is basically laying out there is he's building on the thing he smuggled in at the start, and he's basically predicting what Matt will say, and that is that the idea of objective morals is an illusion. Now, which is not something I've heard Matt ever say explicitly, and it's not something
No, it's a social construct, which those aren't illusions.
Right. So what we would say is that those who experience the idea that there are moral truths, that's an intuition. That's an intuition that someone has that they can't necessarily back up, almost like any intuition.
Right.
But because that's our intuition, he's basically saying, well, is everyone's intuition wrong?
But okay. So you may not know this about David, though. David is a diagnosed psychopath who would admit that he himself doesn't have those innate intuitions. So.
That's super chat.
Oh, I did. Okay, I can see it. Yes.
Is that related?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I got it.
No. All right. So,
Paul's running the stream now. He's letting me know how to do it.
yeah.
It says, I think it's valuable to know socio versus psychopathy. That's from Melissa. Thanks, Melissa. Yes, it is valuable to know the difference between the two. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get into the difference between the two
Okay, we can save that for
right now. But essentially, he doesn't feel anything towards anybody. He doesn't ascribe anybody any inherent value is what is relevant to him in this discussion. People who are sociopaths lack empathy. But they can still feel a lot of feelings. He doesn't necessarily feel feelings in the same manner that a lot of other most other humans do. So I've lost track of what I was saying.
Oh, so David was saying we all believe there's moral truths, but there isn't really. And
Right. So I don't actually believe that there are moral truths. And I think that one of the things that David's appealing to, and a lot of these apologists appeal to, is that if there aren't moral truths, then that might be scary for people. And they appeal to that fear. Like, if we don't have an authority that is determining for us what is right and what is wrong, and has mandated that, then it's up to us, and it being up to us could be terrifying. So I think that that's kind of what he's referencing. I think he appeals to that underlying fear that would exist in people inherently. Would you disagree with that?
No, I just think it's incredibly ironic because later his objection to Matt will be that morality can't just be what makes us happy or what we like.
Right.
And yet,
yeah.
his general appeal against it is, well, I would be very unhappy and wouldn't like it if this wasn't the case.
Yeah, and Braxton did that too. I noticed that he was like, it would be scary if if Matt's moral system was true. That would be terrifying. Yeah, but if just because something is scary, it being terrifying and right is all the more reason, I think, for us to really like take these types of dialogues seriously.
All right, I'm jumping. So, David, you got the sense his basic point was the general objective morality, which is not what Matt was here to debate. So let's see what Matt wants to talk about.
Okay.
Wait for doing this. I was trying to take a bunch of notes. Sometimes I wonder why I bother showing up as long as opponents are going to try to present both sides in a fictional straw man. This started off as, hey, let's do which makes a better account of ethics, God or atheism.
Yeah, I played that clip already. My bad.
Yes. Okay.
I'm in charge of
time?
the...
Yeah. I let it. See, I touch the mouse and I get in trouble.
Yep.
Already a super chat. Never already sent a super chat. Just says money. Thanks, Roberta. I appreciate.
I mean, it's Australian money.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, confusingly defined. And David wants to say that the atheists are going to completely misdefine it as if it's not morality anymore. And I don't know where the word objective came from, because the word objective doesn't appear in the debate title, nor am I here saying in any way that there are objective intrinsic moral values or truths anywhere.
So that was just Matt getting on record again that he was very confused by Matt was incredibly confused by David's whole line of opening, because that wasn't, as far as Matt was concerned, not what the debate was supposed to be
Right,
about.
exactly. So he was establishing that there. I'll get another super chat from Mike MC. Who is this wee business? By the way, I've got vodka. We're drinking rum. We got rum for this.
I'm going to jump to, I think I'm going to skip to the chess.
Yes,
analogy.
okay. I tried to turn him up.
That's the most excited anyone's been for chess in a while.
Chess. But I love this analogy. And for the people that are saying that they're a little bit low, I have turned them up as high as I can turn them up. I am very sorry. I'll try to figure out what I can do about that at some other time. It may be because I have earphones in on my end. I'm not sure. Usually it's not an issue. But the volume is up as high as it can go. So I apologize if it's difficult to hear.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're good. I turned it up on my end.
Beings.
Hopefully it's better.
What would be an action that benefits oneself or others or society, et cetera, and that because as long as we have to share space, we should work together to find the things that make life better for all of those people who care about making life better. Now, the immediate concern is, what if I don't care about making life better?
Right.
Cool, then I'm not talking to you. This is why I use the chess game as an example. Chess is entirely arbitrary. The rules are subjective. We invented it, we came up with the board, the pieces, how they move, how they interact. But once we sit down at the chess game and we decide that we would rather not lose, it doesn't matter if you are the opposition or a teammate or a coach. If we can agree that the goal is to not lose the game, then we can agree non-subjectively about which moves are better and which moves are worse. This is intrinsically obvious, well, maybe not intrinsically obvious. This is, I know of no refutation of this other than to say, I don't really care about chess, I don't care about winning. And the analogy holds that we are in a universe. We are physical beings in a physical universe, and the laws of that universe, the physical laws, dictate the consequences of our action. If I slice somebody's throat open, or give them a cup of water, or
I think that's good there.
Yeah, okay. So the chess analogy is essentially saying that, and Matt explained it, and he explained it better than I'm probably going to paraphrase it here, that we created the game of chess and we created the rules. So the creation of that is subjective. Like it's a human construction. We made it out of our heads. However, if we sit down with somebody and agree that we want to play chess, there's objectively a right and wrong way within that confine to win the game. There's good and bad moves. If I sweep all of my pieces off the board, I'm going to lose. That's an objective fact. But that doesn't mean that chess itself was objectively in existence, is accessible in reality in the universe without humans constructing it and enacting it. And to me, it seems, and this is what I said to you last night, it seems like Matt's saying, like, if we agree on a rule set, if we agree, let's say, on well-being or flourishing or decreasing harm, whatever way you want to look at it as the objective that we have as humans, and that's what we want to strive towards, you could very easily set up an objective set of standards to achieve that goal, both individually and en masse for society. So in that way, there is an objective once we agree on the goals. And it seems as though, like, David's saying, well, yeah, but why should we play chess?
Yes, David was very concerned about why people should want to play chess.
He's like, I want to play Monopoly. Everybody should have to play Monopoly. Objectively, Monopoly is the only game. And your game isn't even real. It's dumb because Monopoly is the only game because my dad gave me Monopoly. And my dad is the only person who decides what game we're playing. Like,
and notice that Matt is attempting to, he will get to it. He is observing the way people act in reality.
Right.
And attempting to come up with a framework, a hypothesis that explains why most people aren't 100% myopically self-centered every minute of every day.
Well, because you couldn't exist for very long.
Right. And that's why, because they're both basically trying to explain why aren't we terrible people every minute of every day. That's what they're both attempting to try and explain. And David's just saying God tells us not to. And Matt is attempting to explain that no, it's, well, and we'll get to it. So selfishness, and all these things are,
and just that God tells us not to isn't enough to stop people either. Like, so to me, it seems like David is saying that because God told us to, we don't. But what I hear is there is potential punishment. That's the way I perceive it, and I could be wrong, but if we don't adhere to this set of standards, I'm convinced that I'll be punished. And if I do, I'm convinced that I'll be rewarded. So it's a system of rewards and punishments. How does Doug from Pine Creek put it? Carrots and sticks.
Carrots and sticks.
Yeah, it's just like, it's no different in my mind than what Matt's saying. The only difference is he's saying it's coming from an authority and Matt's saying it's coming from us. Like, they're both finding justifications, and they may even agree on the justifications. If both of them took God out of it, they could come, I think, to rational justifications for what is and isn't a moral action. But David's saying you can't do that without God, and Matt's saying, yeah, you can.
And here's how.
And here's how.
And yeah, he'll lay it out.
But David's saying, no, you can't, because he already gave us morals.
Well, because,
and they wouldn't even, and not only that, but they wouldn't even matter. They just wouldn't matter if he hadn't given them to us. But they would, because I'm so rambly, I'm sorry. They would matter, though, because we exist within a society. We objectively need other people to exist. Like, I didn't make these clothes that I'm wearing. I didn't make these glasses that are on my head. I didn't give my son the surgery that he needed when he was little. Like, we need other people to work collaboratively with us in our best interest in order for society to operate. We can't exist in isolation and flourish. And we know that life is better for us if other people exist and fulfill roles in a society that we belong to. And it's pragmatic. Like, David operates pragmatically. He would have to. So I don't understand how we couldn't see that as pragmatic, even divorcing yourself from the emotion. Right?
Yeah, and he equivocates on this a bit because he realizes, like, when he was an atheist, that is exactly what I thought. So what you're saying makes sense. But they're having separate debates, so it doesn't matter. Like, he freely will later just grant Matt a lot of Matt's points.
Yeah.
Because he thinks they're debating something else.
Oh, you're going to need to get a boop. There's a super chat. Anybody who watched Paul's premiere the other day, I told you I'd pay you Thursday for the boop you spotted me the other day. Oh, so that was a bonus boop. That's a bonus. Hi from Montana. I love both of your channels. Thank you for all the work you put in. Thanks. Good dragon. All right.
To a God. Secular humanism can correct and adapt and be updated based on new information. we can change. And the resolution to those conflicts come from discovery, debate, discussion, and desire. Empathy, education, and effort are the cornerstones of secular humanism. God may or may not be real. There's no agreement on God's existence, his characters, his goals, or if he's a he, or if he even applies, what his desires are, what their instructions are, what their preferences are. And also, even if we had some indication of those things, there's no indication that those desires and preferences actually get to the heart of what makes the world better for human beings. But it's worse than that, because there's no clear path to agreement on any of those issues about God. And so all we ever have is one human being telling another human being in a lazy fashion that, hey, I want there to be objective moral values, and I'm going to appeal to this God that I can't demonstrate, because that, to me, in my mind, satisfies this need of a foundation with no indication that it exists, that it's real, or anything, because God...
Go. I ramble.
So, I mean, basically, this is, again, so Matt is engaging in his debate, and the debate is not which system is the best system.
Right.
The debate is which system best explains the type of morality we observe in the world. And so Matt is essentially saying that, you know, that everyone's version of this God isn't a great isn't as coherent an explanation as just sometimes we're selfish and sometimes we're not, and also there'll be some frustration on Matt's part. Matt wanted to very specifically debate Christianity versus secular humanism, as opposed to
God.
And I noticed that some people who have been reviewing this have been pouncing on that as well. But keep in mind that this was not a system of which one is best. It's like A and B, which is the best explanation, which is the kind of thing theists always go to. And hey, here's stuff for the resurrection, which is what's the best explanation. Or here's the universe exists, what's the best explanation. Yet when it comes to morality, they can't even fathom this idea that we're putting up hypotheses to see which ones are the best explanation. But also keep in mind when you're debating is A or B better, best explains it, that doesn't mean that there isn't a C and a D and an E that are all better than A and B.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't the point of the debate to determine what was the ultimate thing. It was like, we're going to compare A and B. Maybe A and B are both terrible, and one is slightly less terrible than the other, whatever. But that Matt's engaged in one debate, David's in another. I'll keep harping on that. But
Yeah, no, well, it's a valuable point, because I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily realize it, because he goes, I refer to it as going to the wall, right? Because you get to a point, like I said earlier, where you ask why, like, why should we be good to each other? Like, what, like, you ultimately get to the point that why does it matter? And what the Christians seem to hold on to, and a lot of believers seem to hold on to, anybody who sees God as like the morality giver, the creator of morality, the reason that morality exists, they seem to hold on to the fact that this makes it real. If I can say that God made it, then I can say it's real. I can say it tangibly exists in reality as a component of reality that we must adhere to. Whereas somebody like me would say, well, it's not real in that way. It doesn't, sorry, I'm pulling them out of your ears. It's not real in the way that, it exists in the ether, in the universe, and we're just working towards accessing it somehow. It exists as a construct that we generated to determine and describe the best systems of how to conduct ourselves in order to benefit society. And we improve it as, like, evidence would dictate that to me, because we improve as we go, we learn more things. Having these discussions is valuable. And if you just say it was mandated, here's the list, this is what we're using, then you remove the ability to have those discussions. And like I said before, like if you take God out of it, there's more value in the discussion, because you're not just saying you have to adhere to this system because I said so or because God said so. You're actually scrutinizing the systems to figure out what the goal is that makes the objectives within regarding your actions and your behaviors valuable and important. You're removing that opportunity because you're just following mandates. You're just having a system dictated to you without analyzing the system. Like, if you can analyze the system, if the system can be analyzed and found to be falling short, then it's not a good mandate. And if it deserves to be analyzed, if we should analyze it, if there are questions, then maybe the system it's generated from us, and we're just discovering the best way to construct this system. Once you tell me I have to adhere to a system without question, you lose that, I think.
And Matt's point is, it's not even a system until you define which deity. Like, you can't.
Until you determine
theism,
it, yeah.
Theism isn't a system.
No, deism certainly isn't.
Because, again, Matt didn't mention this specifically here, but I know he sort of made sense. You can imagine a God that has terrible motives. You can imagine a God that does not care about us at all. You can imagine a God that only cares about how the dolphins are.
Yes, or a God that doesn't care at all.
Right. So,
but especially like a deistic God. Like, if you go to like a pantheistic or a deistic God, they're just like, they could have set the universe in motion and been like, that's on you, do whatever.
Right. So,
and we would still need to construct morality.
Right. So the existence of a creator God isn't a system
No.
at all. Right.
And appealing to it doesn't improve the system.
No.
Ever. You can't ever improve that system. And if you can't improve the system, then it wasn't a good system, and it's not an all-knowing God. Like, it.
All right.
My head spins thinking about it. That looked like I was making a crazy thing, but I wasn't. That was my head spinning. I just realized how that looked. Oh, Melissa said, it's funny, David mentions the Milgram experiment. Melissa is like after my heart because we just spent 20 minutes while I was like flat ironing my hair. Well, he spent 20 minutes listening to me lose my shit about that. Wait for it. We'll get there. We'll get there. I was like, why would he even use that?
This is just a brief thing about merely disliking. The little clip, is that?
Yeah, no.
Dislike it. Theism and atheism give us very different answers to these questions, and Matt's answer would be very different from mine, given a framework of secular humanism. Now, I said that atheists never manage to apply the same level of skepticism to their own claims that they apply to the claims of theists. Fortunately, we're in a debate, so let's take a closer look at Matt's claims. He said God is not a moral system. God is
He's not.
We just
more
said
like
that.
a theoretical being or something like that. But we're not just talking about any being here. We're talking about a being that created the universe, created all of us, and who sustains us for every moment of our existence, and who is the ultimate ground of moral good.
Oh, it's okay. You can pause it here. I have things to say. You find your thing.
Yep.
And I'll rattle on about what I think about this. Did you find your other timestamp?
I think I just may have said it too. I think I said it too late, but that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever. We'll skip to the next one.
Yep.
But I tweeted about this the other day. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm sorry. If you don't follow me on Twitter,
If you don't follow her on Twitter, then don't have Twitter. Honestly, though, if you're gonna have Twitter, follow Shannon. It's
I would
better if you
recommend
don't. Better not to have Twitter. But if you're going to, follow Shannon.
but like, I tweeted about this. This is the explanation to everything. Like, drank. I said like, so every time you're in a discussion like this, God is just automatically the answer to everything because he can do everything. He is everything. He is everywhere. He knows everything. He's omnipotent. He's omniscient. He is a fill in the blanks answer, whatever answer. So he's always the answer. It's like I created the answer to everything and I called it God. So no matter what argument I'm having with you, I win. Because whatever you say, the answer is, well, God can just do whatever because he's God. So your reasoning based on your observations of reality and your attempt to have a conversation with me regarding, what that means, that we can negate all of that because I have the answer to everything. We don't need to understand it, but it's called God. And yeah, it just drives me Because the valuable answers to questions aren't in the ontology, to me, of things like this so much as the enacting. Until we recognize that we have to identify the goals of moral systems and realize why they're valuable, all of this is twaddle to me. Like, it's just whatever. It's all just...
Is that one of your psychology terms?
Yes, that is yes. Twaddle is a psychology term. You know what I mean, though? Like,
about twaddle?
About twaddle, yes. No, it's... If identifying the goals is what matters.
Yes.
And once you identify the goals, you can enact the systems. But until we can agree on the goals, the rest of it doesn't matter. My dad's better than your dad's stuff doesn't matter to me, because there's actual human lives and interactions in the balance in the meantime. And pedantry regarding who's right and who's wrong about belief systems doesn't solve any of that for anyone.
Well, and it certainly doesn't explain the observation of the kind of behavior we see in humans.
No, goodness, no. No, right, exactly.
Yeah, it does nothing to
doesn't.
explain behavior.
There's so many presuppositions.
They're wanting to have a free get out of argument free card. A get out of argument free card. So to say, well, we can't agree on what an action should be here.
Right.
So, but I'm agreeing with God and you're not, so therefore I win.
Mic drop, I win.
But of course that holds absolutely no water unless both people agree on the same authority figure.
And I'll say something else later that contradicts the thing that I said. But it's still, God can contradict. It frustrates me. Oh, well, I have a super chat. Mike MC, Deuteronomy 4:24. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. One might say selfish. Ooh, we're gonna get into selfishness. Somebody else watch this debate.
The first 3 of the 10 Commandments are about him.
It's true. It's true.
Thou shalt have no gods before me.
Yeah, but if there aren't any other gods, then that's weird.
Problematic. All right.
Hopefully people are finding some value in this. We're not drunk yet. Hopefully
With the ball
that'll
peen.
happen.
And I think what he just said flows pretty naturally out of an atheist worldview. You don't have to go that way, but I think it's pretty natural to go this way. Namely, if you say, hey, so this is the position that was just stated, as far as I can tell. He could correct me if I'm wrong. But if you say, hey, I'm seeking the well-being of other people, then if you're doing that, then you can say, well, these things follow. Therefore, if that's my goal, then I have an obligation to do these things that will, help me reach that goal.
Right.
If you don't seek that goal, he says, well, morality has nothing to say to you, right? So think about this. If I do not agree to seek the well-being of all people, then what moral obligations do I have? As far as I can tell from Matt's position, I have none. I don't have any moral obligations. Now think about that. What this means is that when I bashed my dad's head in with a ball-peen hammer when I was 18 years old, I didn't violate any moral obligation. I did nothing morally wrong. I just didn't sign on. For this. Didn't sign on for this goal that some other people seek. So I did nothing wrong. Now I'm willing to lay this down as a rule. If your moral system says I did nothing wrong by bashing someone's head in with a hammer, I think you need a new moral system.
Okay, so lots of things in there, but obviously one of them, if you say I did nothing wrong, is not what Matt is saying, is not what anyone is saying, right. Because by secular humanism, you absolutely did something wrong by bashing someone's head in with a hammer. That is not increasing the well-being of the person whose head it was.
Or your own.
Or your own. But, so David is trying to pretend that because we say some people aren't going to play chess, doesn't mean that we don't evaluate their play. It just means that that's not that person's individual motivation. So, like, that drives me crazy when Christians insist that we wouldn't call it, because we are not calling it wrong in a directive sense, that we wouldn't also call it wrong. Absolutely, we would call it wrong. And I lost my other point, so I'm going to throw it to you.
I think it's an appeal to fear, right?
That was my other point.
Yeah, it's an appeal to fear. They're saying, or he's saying here, in my opinion, I don't want to misrepresent David. I may be, because I'm imbuing a lot of what I say with just This conversation, this dialogue that Paul and I are having is going to be imbued with every other dialogue that I've had about this, I think, probably.
Right.
So if it seems like I'm misrepresenting David, I'll apologize to David, because I don't want to do that. Same with Matt, because I may be misrepresenting him too. But these are just my opinions on the way I see these conversations take place, generally using this as a catalyst for that. So a lot of the time, and I think specifically here, when they say, imagine that, like, I can hit my dad with a hammer and try to kill him, and there's not a system that blankets all of us that we all need to be accountable to. That means that there will be outliers like me who are accountable to no one. But that's actually not the reality of it. And on top of that, I don't even think that God solves that problem, because there's clearly people who believe in God who do reprehensible things. And I was saying this to Paul earlier, they've also got another level to escape accountability because they can atone. So it doesn't even answer that in the Christian framework. But being afraid of the fact that you have to opt into a moral system in order to exist productively in a society, being afraid that people are going to say, well, I opt out, isn't an indicator that absolute God-given morals are true. It's just an indicator that the fact that it's up to us is scary and serious and should be taken seriously and discussed in a serious fashion and analyzed critically, and that these conversations are important. So just saying, well, if it's up to us, we screw things up and people like me are going to go around killing people. But if I'm accountable to God, I won't. What do you think about that? Well, I think that I'm probably kind of glad you believe in God if that's what stops you from doing these sorts of things. However, for the rest of us, there's a myriad of things that stop me from doing those things. There's a reason that atheists aren't running around hitting people in the head with hammers all the time. One, we don't want to. Two, we're accountable to the laws of the land and we like our lives and don't want to, go to jail. Three, we feel guilt and empathy and we don't want to harm other people. Like, the list goes on and on and on and on. And we know if everybody just goes around doing that, society is going to fall apart and there's a chance it's going to be done to us. Like, you can think of a billion justifications, but he's essentially saying the only valid justification that will force somebody like me to adhere to this system is God. If you remove God, I'm not going to adhere to that. And he even says later, if you remove God, I'm not going to adhere to the system. I don't need to opt into your system. Well, guess what? You're going to be held accountable. The issue is that...
Right, but the accountability isn't a moral accountability. You actually are facing a legal accountability, and
right.
he pretends that those are the same as well, in that he feels like we can only create a legal accountability based on some greater morals, when no, absolutely not. We can create legal accountability on purely preferences.
Right.
Like, I have a legal accountability to drive because I live in Canada. I have a legal obligation to drive on the right-hand side of the road. Mm-hmm. I do not have a moral obligation to drive on the right-hand side of the road, other than the fact that because by being arbitrary about it, I would endanger lives.
Right.
But anyway, but David, I know this comes up sometimes. He whines about there's no accountability if you don't have this objective thing.
There's no ultimate accountability.
Right.
So, see, this is where it gets confusing to me.
He's basically saying, how can you even make laws? He wants to wave his hand and say, because we admit that only people who want to play chess are playing chess. Yeah. That you can't then have somehow legal accountability over the people choosing not to play. And we just give ourselves that authority to... Do you disagree with that? Am I saying something
No,
weird?
that all makes sense. But... That is where it gets, like, you get into debates about, how society should be constructed then. Because there are people who would probably like to remove themselves from the confines of the way our society operates. But because we have to exist as societies, because we have to exist, as an aggregate, you can't do that because it would be detrimental to you. Like, you would no longer have the benefits that society affords people who operate within the confines of the system, which is why people don't. I'm back to the carrots and sticks. I really think that morality is a nice idea that we name behavioral constructs that we adhere to because we're empathetic and because we're wanting to increase our well-being and avoid harm. I think that we package that up and name it morality and then debate the minutia of what it is. And nobody can really get to a hard line of what it is. And God doesn't solve the problem because God doesn't give you a clear mandate of what morality is either. All God, like, you just appeal to God because if God's the creator of everything and encompasses all reality, and you see morality as a tangible concept existing in the ether, then he would have created that too. And you really, 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 as a human, want it to be a tangible concept because something needs to explain why you shouldn't be crappy and why people shouldn't be crappy to you, because otherwise it's terrifying. So it all comes back to avoidance of harm and increasing well-being. You want to avoid consequences and you don't want to be afraid, which is a consequence. That's a type of harm.
Right.
I just rambled on forever. I'm so
This
This is what it's like. Oh, I got super chat. Oh, Mike MC, Matt writes, why TF do I do this to myself? He may have. Jeremy says, Shannon, twaddle of the gap, could be our new method to explain all things unexplained. Maybe. Could be. Maybe.
Solid
Indeed.
All right. I'm going to skip over
Okay.
a couple things. I just want to mention that I skipped over, in case someone's looking for them in the debate.
Right. And the debate's linked below on Modern Day Debate. You can go watch it
Right.
in an entirety of it.
So at the 35-minute mark, once again, expresses his idea that the debate was based on ethics.
Yeah, we've
and that
covered
ethics.
that.
But just to mention, ethics and morality are not the same. Ethics is how really how we do behave. Mm-hmm. And there's no grand ought to it.
Yeah.
So they were debating different things, and then I'm going to jump to 40.
Oh my gosh, we're only 31 minutes into
I know.
it.
I'm trying to move ahead, and I want to get to the experiment. So we'll do this quick flip first.
Okay.
Be specific about God, but it's just, let me get just specific enough so that maybe I can claim that we have some moral duty or obligation to this God, when we don't. There's no way to fix this by appealing to God. You either get to divine command theory, might makes right, etc. Can you work out a system based on this creator God? David says, I think you can work out a system of moral ethics and moral obligation based on this creator God. Well, it's a shame that you didn't do that or show up with that, because that's what the whole debate is about. There's no reason to think that there's some objective moral imperative out there. What we're talking about is surviving, thriving, and recognizing that as beings in this universe, there are things that we can do that make our lives better and make our lives worse. And while there are people who will undoubtedly, most people, I would argue, and I would agree with David on this, most people care about themselves first, the people closest to them second, and then begin to care less and less as geography and time expands that distance. I don't see that there's anything wrong with that, as long as the extent that we're caring also is proportional to that impact that our lives have on each other.
So I wanted to play that largely just to show that Matt answered what he thought the debate was about. And that was a great answer. He's like, we observe that people care most about themselves, and then next about the people immediately around them. And as you get geographically and temporally further away, we care less. And I actually, when I like talking about this, this same thing goes with species. We like the fuzzy species because they're closer, more similar. We like mammals generally better than we like insects, right?
Essentially.
And what Matt's doing is saying, we observe that this is the way most people feel, So what explains that? Well, the idea that our species is seeking its own survival seems to explain this perfectly, because we are a social species. We figured out that that's our survival advantage. Anyway, that was all I just wanted to let Matt actually
Articulate that himself.
win his half of the debate here. And then did you have anything to add with that?
No, I think that's good. Like, I feel like we've beaten that horse at this
Yeah,
point.
now we know how. So I'm going to jump to this experiment now, because
I have so much stuff to say about the Milgram
so we've jumped
experiment.
into, if you're following along in the debate, we've now jumped into the segment where they're asking each other questions finally, instead of just making statements at each other. So,
Yes. Yeah.
So let's go.
Ups, and in the original experiment, he found that.
Oh, no, you're too far.
I'll,
You're too far.
Super chat is an option, in which case you can make a short comment toward one of the speakers.
Super chat's an option here, too.
And thank you for the super chats I've received thus far. I appreciate it.
You just continue to be your friendly selves in your questions or comments.
You can be mean to us,
thanks,
though.
gentlemen,
That's
and
fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Timer set for the open discussion.
Open forum.
Matt, you seem to have a slightly rosier picture of human beings than I do. I was wondering what you think of the Stanley Milgram experiment and its follow-ups. And in the original experiment, he found that roughly 65% of people in America were willing to put out a possibly lethal dose of electricity that could kill the person who was receiving
Lethal
it.
dose.
Just because they were told to. And that's been kind of repeated around the world. Various variations of that. In Germany, it was even higher. They found that 85% of people, if you said, push this button that's going to shock this person because he's not learning these word pairs correctly, 85% of people were willing to push a button that said, this is possibly lethal dose, this could kill this person. And so if you combine that with just what we learned from the 20th century, you know, the 12 million or so that died in German camps, not even counting the people that died in the war, you know, the communists starving 5 to 7 million Ukrainians to death, went in there, just took all their food, all their seeds, had dogs sniffing around to make sure they weren't hiding any food and so on. Again, the Chinese, the Japanese, pretty much everywhere you go in the world, you find these kinds of things. And when we find that, you know, your average human being walking down the street is probably willing to zap someone if they're just told to do it. How much stock are you really putting in this claim that, you know, we are seeking the well-being of others, and we can sort of build a moral framework out of that?
Okay. Oh, God, it was really hard not talking. So I did talk a bunch of times, but I talked really low. So all right. So I have a lot of things to say about the Milgram experiment. I actually didn't catch this the first time I was listening because I was probably talking through it, because I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but I talk a lot. So the Milgram experiment, to explain it to you, it's been a long time since I read up on it, but it's something that I've read up on quite a bit when I was studying psychology. So here's how the experiment operates based on my memory. I didn't get a chance to look it up because I didn't realize beforehand. But what they did was they had participants in one room and they had somebody doing a task in another. And the participant that was in the room didn't realize that the person that was in the other room operating tasks, like doing tasks, like word matching tasks, and I can't remember, I think that was it. There may have been some others. So the tasks aren't important. What was important was they were supposed to give a light shock to the person, and they were told that they were studying essentially like conditioning that person to be better at the task. So when they failed at a task, they were to give them a shock, and they were to steadily increase the shocks. Now, the actor that was in the other room was told that they didn't feel anything. They actually weren't giving this person shocks. This person was not getting shocks at all. But the person in the other room was supposed to react increasingly distressed and concerned about their well-being. Now, in one group, there were experimenters in the room with them telling the people that were giving the shocks, you know, keep going, it's fine, they're fine. And in another room, the people were allowed to just stop on their own. Now, it was found that the people that had the authority figure, this was actually a study on obedience to authority, which is why I will get into why I don't understand he would use this argument as a good argument for his system. But it showed that people will kind of kick off culpability. They'll kick the can down the road if they can, and a lot of people will do this. You'll see this in observer bias too and bystander bias. I'm getting off track. But the people that were in the room with an authority figure who was saying the person's fine, keep going, the person's fine, keep going, demonstrably went further, even to the point where the person in the other room was saying, I have a heart condition, please stop, I'm going to die, and was showing physiological distress. They would keep going. Now, this wasn't an indicator, like David's presenting it, that people are inherently bad. Because the people that didn't have authority figures convincing them that it was okay didn't go as far. They just, they would be like, this hurts them, I'm going to stop. Like, if they had the opportunity to stop, they would stop. What this was an indicator of was that if somebody has an authority figure telling them to do something, they're more liable to follow that imperative because they've been given a directive from somebody they perceive as being in authority and knowing more than them about the situation. What it also indicated was that people, if they can push off accountability, are more likely, I have another drink, thanks, are more likely to push the boundaries of what they would do if they were accountable to just themselves. So if in the scenario where there was an experimenter in the room, essentially the person's justification was, well, if something happens, it's not my fault. They're telling me to do it. They should know they're in charge here. Where in the other room, they were just accountable to themselves. So any repercussions would fall solely on them. How is that supporting his argument? I don't understand. Because his argument is essentially, this was mandated by an authority figure, this being morality. An authority figure gave this to me, thus I should accept it. He's the person pressing the button in this analogy. And the atheists are the people in the other room that stopped. Doesn't anybody see that? Like, I don't even understand. He's using this to indicate that people are inherently bad, but all it's indicating is that people are more likely to be bad if they can push off accountability, atonement, ask for forgiveness, it's gone, than if they're just accountable to themselves.
So if a god tells you to do something,
then you're not accountable for it. I couldn't believe it. Like, and I didn't hear it the first time. Paul brought it up while I was in there flat ironing my hair. And he was like, do you know about this experiment that he's talking about? I was like, what experiment is he talking about? He's like, oh, well, they shock people. And I was like, why would he talk about that experiment? And I was like, is it this one? And I reamed off this stuff. And he was like, let's listen. And I was like, I can't remember the name of it. I'm certain it's like the Milgram experiment. And it was. That's what he's talking about. It blows my mind. Can you, like, am I the only one who's... Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. But...
Well, the way David explained it...
He was using it to prove that people will do bad things.
Right.
But he was taking it completely out of context.
Yeah, so this is like, for someone like me who's unfamiliar with this whole territory, this sounds very authoritative. Like, so, he's bringing up a study that shows that everyone is terrible.
But that's not what it showed, though.
Well, right, but this is source methodology. This is what I preach on my channel. It's like, please go... When someone brings up a study, please go check the study to see if it says what the person says that it says.
Yeah, go read it. Don't even listen to me. Go read it, because I'm just going by memory also, too, right? Maybe I got it wrong, but I would strongly suggest reading it. It was a preeminent study in the 60s. They couldn't even do it now because it's ethically unsound.
As we listen again, David did kind of under his breath admit when someone tells them to.
Yes!
But then he butts it up right up against his conclusion so quickly that you kind of miss...
It blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was so, I was floored. Like, he's the person in the room with the button. But he's just assuming that the authority figure that's standing next to him is telling him to do good things. And we're the people in the other room. I have some super chats while you're looking.
Okay.
Melissa, doesn't selfishness release dopamine? It depends on the scenario. And we're going to get into selfishness in a bit, I think.
Yep.
But yes, it does depend on the scenario. You can do altruistic things and get a dopamine hit. Absolutely. You can also be very selfish and get a dopamine hit. There's lots of things that'll give you a dopamine hit. Stock up on rum, not toilet paper. Cheers. Cheers.
Sociable.
The sociable.
No, you can't even do sociable anymore. It's
Why not?
Sociable distancing.
The Bible says humans are evil, but did Jesus die for us? Well, go to Paul's channel. He covers that. And Melissa, again, says, we are psychology lovers. I'm right there with you. I love Melissa. Melissa's been on my channel for a while now, and I love her. She's always here. It's so great. I'm so glad. Yay. All right. So
if Jesus lived, then he also died. Oh. That I'm willing to concede. If Jesus lived, then
he's probably dead. He's probably dead by now.
If he's not, that'd be super good evidence. That would be, yeah. But
that made me squeak. That made me squeak. All right,
we're jumping to...
I hope I get a drink, everybody, because we're not even halfway through this goddamn debate.
I'm down, way down here.
Are you? Oh, okay. So, we're about halfway through our timestamps.
This is whether or not everyone will say yes to well-being. So.
Good job.
If someone like that actually came to power, but you could imagine it happening. Just hey, let's put her, someone like her, someone who agrees with those views, in charge, and just all fossil fuels shut down or something like that. My only point here is.
Do you and your team need to work
commercial.
Hey,
Open your
David's,
free account at Monday.com.
It's monetized.
Bring your team to.
There we go.
My only point here is.
Do we get YouTube money for that?
No. The point was
James does. You're welcome, James.
It doesn't have to be people marching out and slaughtering people. It could be thinking of just something good. Hey, I want this. I want to protect the planet. I want to do that. That could lead to all kinds of disastrous results. But anyway, the point is, yeah, if you can go to the entire world and find everyone, and they could all say, yeah, we're seeking well-being, but what does that get you? You could have asked.
Gets you well-being.
The Nazis, communists. You could ask anyone that. Are you all seeking well-being? Yes, we're all seeking well-being. And you get a lot of different results, and you get some of the greatest atrocities of all.
Now it seems you could go to a lot of people and ask them if they seek well-being, and they're going to say yes. And so then you say, okay, what is your path to well-being? And they say, oh, we want to kill all the Jews. And then you can show them how that doesn't actually get to the well-being that they thought they were going to get.
Well,
hang on, I'll let you talk for a while. If there's an internal conflict, it's lip service to say, I care about well-being, and for me, well-being means this. People can be wrong, and they can be myopic about what is actually better. The fact that people can be wrong about what is better is independent from whether or not they're seeking what is better. And if you and I agree that we're seeking what is better, whether it's in a chess game with regard to physical health, with regard to societal health, or what I would call ethics, or whether or not you would, I don't know, we should just toss morality as a label out the window because it seems to be largely irrelevant. But in all of those cases, if you and I agree that we want a better world, now we get down to what do we mean by better world? And if
What's that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that was incredibly well said, and I don't know if I need to add to that, but I thought that was a really good capper on this weird objection that, well, no, if people do, the only way you can resolve an argument, and I'm still a little sore from, with my last video about David, but, basically the extent that the only way you can resolve an argument is by either finding common ground or having a common authority who is going to, if you both agree that, let's say, the court is an authority, or that a brother and sister agree their mom and dad are an authority, both parties have to agree to an authority for an authority to settle an agreement. Or you can, before you go to the authority, have some common ground, have some overlap things, and one can appeal to the other and say, you know what, we both want as many cookies as possible, so let's do action X, because that is in our... You have to find common ground, and that's exactly what Matt laid out, and it's what David even seems to understand, but he just doesn't like the fact that not everyone agrees with his authority.
Right, and he's appealing back to, well, it's scary again, because he's saying... Essentially, he's saying the Christian system is the best because it tells you have to be good to each other. And in your system, what's telling you have to be good to each other? If it's just you saying you have to be good to other people. Why should I listen to you? I can tell you why I should have to listen to God. Does that seem like a fair steel man?
Absolutely.
So, but that doesn't make sense to me because it assumes it can't scale. That can't scale. That's not plausible. I keep trying to pull these out of your ears. You know what I mean? Like, it can't, I said like, drink. Shannon said like, every time I say like, if you're a latecomer, we have to drink. It's going to just get a drink because we're going to get hammered.
Not like David's hammers.
No. Dude. I'm just gonna go past that. I'm just gonna work past it. We're just gonna move on. You can't scale that out because it's predicated on the assumption that everybody adopts your belief system in order for it to be tangible. And that's not plausible, and it still doesn't even demonstrate that your belief system is true. It's just another thing that I said earlier. I have the answer to everything. The answer to everything when you hit the wall, when you get to the why wall, is God. God solves whatever problem you have when you get to the end of the question why. He just solves it. Can't tell you why. He's just the base. That's why I adhere to it, because he solves that problem for me. You're still having a discussion about how we can positively enact these systems based on what we observe about human behavior and reality. And I'm saying that's not a practical way to do it. Tell everyone to believe this and then they'll just do it.
Right.
Which is the better way?
Well, this is almost the contrast in two parenting styles. One parent says, "Mom, can I have candy at 2 p.m?" And one parent says, "No, because you'll ruin dinner and you'll feel bad and you get hyper, blah, blah, blah." Mm-hmm. And the other parent says, "No, because I said so."
Right.
The person who says no because I said so is not in any way attempting to rationalize it or build common ground or let the child come to, in a future situation that is slightly different, evaluate those
and
things
understand the reasoning for themselves
in any way. Then that child has to keep going back to the parent and saying, well, can I do X? Can I do Y? Can I do Z? And they have no idea.
Yeah, they don't know the reasoning behind why they should behave in certain
fashions. Versus a parent who is at least trying to, at least the first time the child asks, give some within the common ground that they can, like, they know that the child won't have the common ground of long-term health or that bedtime might not be a good thing to adhere to or whatever.
You know, people are going to pick that apart, though. Like, so the apologists are going to look like that and be like, yeah, well, children need our authority just like we need God's authority because we're like children.
Okay. If we need to be treated like children by God.
Then where is he? What's he doing?
It's still a contrast in systems.
No, I get you. I just, every time something comes out of my mouth or something comes out of your mouth, I do this all the time. I'm thinking about how it's going to be represented potentially unfairly later on down the line by somebody who wants to disprove my point by misrepresenting it to begin with.
Welcome to YouTube.
Cheers. Social distancingable. Yeah. So yeah, that's my point. It can't scale because it's predicated on the assumption that you need to adhere to my system of beliefs, and it doesn't even demonstrate a system of belief is true. At all. It's just saying, yeah, well, if you adhere to my system, if you believe what I believe, there's pretty serious consequences. So you probably should. And if you don't, there's going to be consequences. And in your system, there's not pretty serious consequences. People can probably just do whatever. And based on your system, it's probably going to be anarchy. But it doesn't, which isn't fair to the system Matt's presenting. And it also doesn't even demonstrate that your system is true. It's just saying, hey, there'll be consequences. You don't want the consequences, do you? Well, you better just believe what I say. There's consequences if you don't. Nobody wants consequences. Yeah, that's why people, now that I think of it, don't go around murdering and robbing and raping each other because there's consequences. The same reason you potentially and others like you adhere to Christianity to avoid the consequences if you don't. I mean, I'm not saying you don't believe it's true. That's unfair of me. I have another rum now, so that would be unfair because I once believed it's true and I didn't believe it was true because I was afraid of consequences. So that's not fair.
So this next clip we're going to jump to deals with Matt actually attempting to give what, in my view, is as far as ontology can go, and that is really to demonstrate that there is something outside of individual humans. So we are not reliant entirely on our own brain experience, that there actually is something we can ground secular humanism in beyond just individual preference.
Right.
It was this amoral obligation.
You just said that the universe doesn't impose. You said there's nothing in the universe that imposes the moral obligation.
The physical facts of the universe dictate what is better. And if we're going to talk about morality and define morality as seeking what is better, that's where the
physical facts of the universe dictate what is better.
For us, yes.
Yeah.
It's better for me to live a healthy life than it is to not live.
Does the universe dictate? Why would the universe care whether coronavirus flourishes or we flourish?
It doesn't.
Exactly.
But the physical facts of the universe show that if coronavirus is going to kill humans, and I am a humanist, and morality is about what humans do and not what viruses do, that it's in my best interest to work in opposition to coronavirus.
Right.
So that's a great example, I think, of if this thing that they call absolute morality or objective morality can't actually be objective in the sense that if humans didn't exist, would this objective morality that deals with how humans relate to each other, could it exist? Like Shannon, let's say,
Repeat it for me.
Before humans were created, before day 6.
Yeah.
Because we know day 6 is when humans were created. On day 5,
did morality exist?
Did objective morality that tells humans how humans relate to humans exist?
I mean, I don't think it exists.
No,
but it wouldn't. Like, if you remove all humans from existence, there's no need for morality. Morality specifically relates to humans.
Anything that relates to one species only. Like, if there isn't a coronavirus if there isn't an objective morality for any virus,
there wouldn't be.
Or for squirrels,
yeah,
there's no objective squirrel morality.
Yeah.
I mean, this is again where we demonstrate that squirrels do what's best for squirrels.
Yep.
Viruses do what's best for viruses.
Mm-hmm.
Humans do what's best for humans.
Yeah.
That matches what we see in nature. It does not match what we see in nature to say that something outside of us can relate to one species only and yet be independent of that existence of the species.
Right. No, I agree with that.
All right.
I agree. High five. We did it.
High five.
So, but like, drink. Said like, oh, apparently there's still no sound in the video. I'm doing the best I can. Everything's up. I did right click it. And
this is James's fault because his audio is low. Let's go with that.
Spatial sound is off.
And the volume's all the way up.
And the volume's all, yeah.
No, but on the YouTube video?
Open sound settings.
No. But don't
it's already at 100.
There.
Why?
Well, but what about this audio?
It's all the way up too.
Yeah, good.
I'm doing the best I can. I'm sorry, guys. If you can't hear it very well, I apologize. Could I put captions on? Yes, I probably could do that. Yeah?
Yar.
Yay, I did it. There you go. That should help. Good suggestion. Thank you. Thank you, Devin Dotson. Yes, we'll put the captions on. That'll help. And I'll figure out what's going on with the sound. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, I'm gonna skip ahead because we're going a little long here.
Yeah, we are.
So I'm gonna go to the thing that you said. Ooh, good question before.
Right. Oh, did you actually take a note that Shannon said? Ooh, good question.
I want to make sure I give myself okay. So there's gonna be a couple second lead up here.
But wipe us all out. We're pretty disgusting characters. So I understand I'm messed up. So God can do that. As far as the covenant I'm under, I'm commanded to seek the good of all people, to pursue peace with everyone, things like that. There are exceptions because you have, people like, terrorists or Hitler or something like that. But I'm talking about my personal, so that's why this is so important from my perspective, is I'm someone who goes from almost in an instant, I want to kill and slaughter everyone in the world, to I don't want to hurt anyone and you can't make me. And it's just from viewing people as, here's a lump of cells that thinks it's important and isn't, versus this person created in the image of God and is a bearer of the image of God. To say that that's irrelevant, you can't get much out of that, where did I get it from? I wasn't being influenced by other people. I was in a jail cell. I'm in a jail cell by myself.
Bullshit.
And it goes
I heard
from
your
that
story.
shift.
There was a guy who introduced you all this and gave you a Bible and talked with you.
He was just talking. No. He was just talking about Christianity. True. Then I went to a cell. I'm
Okay.
back there in a cell by myself. I'm talking about once I convert, right?
Me too.
The day before I converted, I was sitting around thinking about torturing people and thinking about all the people I wanted to get revenge on, and so on. I convert, and instantly, wow. It doesn't matter if I don't feel this way or that way. I'm not allowed to touch these people. I'm not allowed to torture these people. I'm not allowed to skin these people. I'm not allowed to do that sort of thing.
If you
And
stop
so-
believing, if something were to happen, you were to stop believing, would you go back to wanting to kill and torture? Would you actually do it?
If I stopped believing in God and Christianity,
Yeah.
would I go back
And actually do it?
I have to say, I do understand that there might be a difference between an 18-year-old and a 40-some-year-old in terms of what they want to do. If I had to guess, I would say probably yes. I can't
Then
say.
I want you to
can't-
keep believing. I
can't
don't care to
say-
try to
I
dissuade you
can't
any
say
further.
I can't say I would go around killing people. I don't know. I would be much quicker to punch someone in the face.
So why did you think that was interesting?
Why I thought that was an interesting question was because I think that this is fascinating. Like, I can't speak to David's motives. I don't like it when people impugn motives, and there may have been instances in this conversation where it seemed like I was with David, but like I said before, I'm using this as a catalyst. But this is specifically regarding David. Why I think this is an interesting question, why I would actually like to talk to David about this, is why would that be the case? Because essentially he's saying humans have no inherent value to me. They don't now. If I stop believing in God, they wouldn't again. The only reason that I'm not hurting people or acting like a really bad, dangerous, detrimental person is because I hold a God belief. So what is it about holding a God belief that stops him? Because if it's potential for reward and an avoidance of punishment because he believes it's true and he'll either be rewarded or punished based on his behavior, how is that any different from seeing a pragmatic system within the existing society, absent of a God, of rewards and punishments based on your behavior, with the exception of one is temporary and the other is eternal? So I find that interesting because I'd like to know why. I just like to know why. I just think that it's interesting. I think it's valuable. Did you find the question as interesting as I did?
Well, I get this speaks to Matt's pragmatism, and also I think to Matt's ability to say that we can demonstrate observations that we see in that for David, it took a arbitrary God belief to get him to agree to our goals.
Right.
But once, and so David is complaining that our caring about flourishing is arbitrary, and yet his caring about humans is largely arbitrary because he now cares about whether, and we're going to get to this in our last clip, whether or not he can be rewarded by God theoretically. I don't want to impugn motive, but God granted him the ability to arbitrarily care about humans now.
I don't even think he may say this, or this is what things that he's said has indicated to me, that he doesn't actually even still care about humans. He thinks the same as he did prior. Like, his brain functions the same way it did before. He just acts as though he does.
Right. Demonstrating again that all it takes is to act like you want the same goal, and then we can
Right.
still come up with the same general morality sense, general swath.
And why? So, like, a Christian would say that, he was filled with the Spirit,
Right.
and that's why.
I often play the same clip of.
But is it pragmatic?
It's
though?
weird because I play the same clip of Eric Hovind and Ray Comfort. They have the same conversation with themselves
Interesting.
about whether or not. And Eric says, "I would be in jail if it weren't for God," and Ray says, "So would I." And
I remember that.
And then, frankly,
I
I'm
was
just like,
whoa!
"Great! Then I'm glad you found God." Like that.
good.
It works. It works for you. But anyway.
Right. That's another appeal to, like, you should be scared. Because, we'd all be crazy.
Right. But frankly, I don't actually believe it. I don't honestly
think so.
believe, like Eric Hovind, or Ray Comfort.
No, they like their
There's
lives. They wouldn't risk losing them.
Way.
No way.
That they are going to go out and do some new, at least not a violent offense, whether or not they might be guilty of something jailable.
You're problematic.
We don't
You're a
know.
problem.
Allegedly.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Okay, so I think
super chat. Mike MC, Godwin's Law, BTW. He was the Christian.
Actually, I'm skipping over that part of the debate.
Yes. Oh, the Nazis and the communists. And Vibrantly Brantley. Sorry I'm late. I forgive you. I forgive you this time.
Vibrantly Brantley, thank you earlier for your recommendation of the Noel Plum
Yes,
video.
we did watch that earlier.
Later on, you guys, if you are interested in hearing some hard facts about the current world situation, Noel Plum put out a great video.
Yeah.
So, I want to jump to, I think, the last thing. I think we'll skip entirely just to the selfishness.
Yes.
And then we'll do questions.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yes,
And we'll
because
skip the
we've
rest
already
of-
been at this for an
I
hour and a
know,
half.
I know,
It's
so-
been the longest stream we've ever done.
124-ish.
I'm glad we did this, though, because I love talking about morality.
When we asked you guys for a video, we wanted a 10-minute video, not a 2.5-hour video.
Everybody wanted this, though, and then we started watching it, and then we
know.
watched Braxton's video. And I
Who?
was, God, why are you mean to Braxton?
You have to look up this fellow.
You know who Braxton is. Stop pretending.
If I had to guess, I would say probably yes.
Did you mess up
And
the
I
time?
want you to
Oh, no,
keep-
they're-
I
they're-
can't
they're-
say-
they're-
I
great.
dissuade you.
I can't say I would go around killing people. I don't know. I would be much quicker. I would be much quicker to punch someone in the face than I would be
Oh, sorry, I swear.
as a Christian. But notice what you just said there. You said you want me to be a Christian. So it sounds like there's a kind of hierarchy here of what people should believe.
What it sounds
according
like
to
is
you.
we have a data point of 1, and this is the only thing that will work for you because it's the only thing that you will accept because of who you are.
Because I'm not
but
going by my
that
feelings.
does not mean that God is a better foundation than secular humanism. What it means is that David's concept of God and what it entails is the one thing that he will accept that will do this, and that is not a case for this. This is what secular humanism is about. It's not just like, let's look at an individual, let's look at the data and everything else. Your particular notion of God has no foundation, no demonstration that it is real in any way, and nothing that will motivate anybody else to share it other than you being able to convince them that it's real. But that doesn't mean that it is in any way a better foundation. It doesn't fix a problem. If you don't agree with secular humanism and I can't convince you, okay, we're stuck. If I don't agree with your version of God and you can't convince me, okay, we're stuck. But at least we both know that what secular humanism puts forward, both in the manifestos and from everyone who's advocating for this system, not that there's some authority dictating it, but this is the system, the goal of a better human life, the recognition that we have to solve these problems apparently ourselves until some divine being steps in, and maybe even after then, that we should rely on data, evidence, reason, and that human life has value to us because we're human. That's the part of the reality that carries with it this seeming objective motivation, and the fact that it seems that way doesn't mean it is.
So there's no real objective
No.
there's no objective.
Not real in the sense that you're talking about, where there's some
So
universal imperative.
People who believe that when they're saying you have an objective moral obligation not to bash someone's head in or not to shoot a man in Reno, they're kind of
It's
delusional.
only objective with respect to the goal. Just like
so
there's
no
not a best
objective.
move in chess if there's no rules.
Yes.
So if you don't have that goal, it's more of a situation where society is going to impose or sort of quarantine you, and it doesn't even have to be because you did really.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be because you actually violated
Because
an
you are
objective
in
moral
fact
obligation.
wrong about what is better for you. And we are working towards what is better. And the people who are wrong about what is better, we are the only ones who can step in and seek justice. There's apparently no God concerned or interested in seeking justice. Justice comes from us. Compassion comes from us. Help comes from us. We are the actors, we are the participants, we are the beneficiaries, and there's zero reason to think that anybody else, no sense of cosmic justice, no sense of
selfish
karma.
stuff's coming, but
We can pause and go. Yeah.
So we can just cut it there. It will get to. I don't know if you want to talk about selfishness, but the idea was later that all these things that Matt was talking about are ultimately we can justify because all those things that Matt listed, all the help that you can get and all the flourishing you get, serves that individual at the same time as it serves the group. So that one can say, hey, selfishness was our motivation because I wanted my kids to go to a better school and I wanted my health to be better and I wanted that. And what David failed to connect to later on was that his appeal to a God was equally selfish because when you appeal to a God, or at least the Christian God, there is a heaven and a hell. And anything you can say, well, the God morality inspired me to care for the hungry. Okay, but did you do that because you didn't want to go to hell or because you wanted to go to heaven? And you can say, well, neither. But really, it's ultimately you can put the same selfishness motivation on Christianity that you can put on secular humanism. Ergo, selfishness is what we observe, and selfishness explains the behavior. So whether God is real or not actually doesn't come into play because your motivation is explainable purely by selfishness, regardless of what system you're on. And that was really, I guess, where I was going to end that stuff.
Right. So this just came into my head and I don't know. Like this doesn't even have anything to do with what you just said. So without God, could David rationalize, or any Christian, but in this instance David, because he's in this debate, could you rationalize why something is right or wrong without appealing to a God concept? Right, as a Christian. This was an interesting question to me that just popped into my head. Because I could go through rationalizations as to why I should or shouldn't do something. There's a train going by. Hopefully you guys can hear it. It's super loud. And I think it's a valuable practice to do. As a Christian, when you have God belief, do you not have to go through those internal rationalizations? Is it just imbued upon you as just sort of tacit knowledge that you understand without even the necessity to articulate?
Well,
or
Christianity.
Because what's the differential? That's what's complex to me. It's people are arguing as though there's a differential, as though how I act in society and how you enact your behaviors in society are based on different things. And mine is dictated to me as a set of mandates, and yours is approached through a series of rationalizations and justifications. Now, one would think that the series of rationalizations and justifications would be demonstrably better way to determine how to behave in society, how to treat other people, how to protect yourself. One would assume, or I would assume, that that's better than just adhering to a mandate. But it seems to me, and this is what I hear when Christians argue about this stuff, is that it's better to just adhere to a mandate than to provide rationalizations. Or are they saying whatever rationalization you provide just leads you to the mandates?
Well, here's the problem.
That I'm telling you are objective?
Better is a meaningless word unless you have common goals.
Right.
So, but a Christian is trying to pretend that the word better has meaning absent a goal. But of course it doesn't, because
It couldn't.
So, as Matt was saying, is obviously if I want to live longer, eating healthier food is better than eating junk food.
Yeah.
But if you don't, the start of that sentence doesn't make sense, because eating healthy food is better than junk food doesn't sound true to a kid, right? Like it's
Right.
So anyway, you were asking what a Christian.
That's not what I was asking.
No, you're asking you're asking does a Christian think it's better to
just adhere to prescriptions. So God said X, Y, Z, right? I don't even know where you access that, by
Right.
the way. That's another question. They'll say the Bible, but that's ambiguous.
Well, there's two things. So one is that I think all.
Why is that better than providing rationalizations? And the only reason I think a reasonable person of any measure would decide to adhere to them is because they provided their own individual, introspective, internal rationalizations based on their existence in reality. So it doesn't make any sense to me arguing someone told me X is bad, so I don't do X. That doesn't, any rational person would say, well, why is X bad? And then we'd all provide justifications, including the person that's ostensibly adhering to X being bad because they were told. They're still going to provide themselves justification. They're not just going to blindly adhere to it. That's demonstrably worse way to live your life.
So where religion overlaps with an individual's intuition, then religion is a very good heuristic, right?
Is it though? Is it a good heuristic?
No, but it works as a heuristic.
It works as a heuristic.
So you don't have to think through. You can just tell yourself, oh right, 10 Commandments says that stealing's wrong. Not that I have to work through that. Oh, if I steal this, the store owner will be out of money, and I know the store owner's son.
It's effective.
Right.
It's an effective heuristic, but that doesn't mean it's a good heuristic.
But the flip side of that is sometimes religion is in conflict with your intuition. So, for example, you may not necessarily understand why the out group should be shunned or the out group should be treated poorly. Then, unfortunately, when religion tells you the out group should be treated poorly, but your intuition maybe tells you that it shouldn't, that's where sometimes you end up. That's where the bad stuff happens, right? Is where you swallow where the religion makes you doubt your own intuition.
That's where the dissonance comes in.
And then the third part of that is that a lot of people, what I observe in my own life, is that people tend to create God in their own image. So there are some Christians who have no problem with LGBT people and getting married and their rights. And
yes,
stuff.
and I know many
some
of them. Yeah.
have incredible problems with that.
Right.
It tends to fall in line with the biases that they had before they came to religion. Like it's interesting.
What do you mean before they came to religion, though?
Well,
that's got to be a small group of before they came to religion.
Well,
what were you doing before you came to religion?
So let me put this. So
you weren't existing.
No, I didn't want to quite get. So there are cultural biases, say regional cultural biases. Sometimes I live in a place that has regional cultural biases.
Yes.
I live in Alberta.
Yeah, you do.
And by living in Alberta, you vote conservative, and you think that God created male and female, and any deviation from that. So there's a cultural bias there that I believe inform people inform you before you actually figure out what your notion of God is. And it's very convenient. Oh, isn't it convenient that we found the verses
that
affirm the biases that we had?
It's crazy how that happens sometimes, right? Bananas.
But I lived in California and attended churches. Like, I was a Christian when I lived in California.
Yeah.
And those churches
were super progressive, I bet, comparatively.
There were LGBTQ people in the congregation. They, by growing up in San Francisco, you would have been exposed to a greater diversity of people.
Yeah.
And you probably knew people in kindergarten. My son went to people in this kindergarten, had 2 moms and 2 dads. Like, there were several of those.
Good.
Right. So my son grew up where that was a bit of a norm before he had his God belief figured out.
Right.
And so, therefore, my son's God belief is accepting of these kind of things.
Because he's comporting his God belief to his understanding of social reality.
Right. And I feel that as a truism. I feel that everyone's God.
Well, then what are morals then? Like, because there are Christians that'll argue that that's immoral. And so, which brings me back to, like, where do you access these things? Where do you go to get the morals, the objective morals that are so important, that are dangerous if we don't have them? Where do you go? Do you go to the moral store? Is there a moral tree? Is there, like, are they written in the stars? Where do you get them? How do you figure them out? Because if you say the Bible, I'm calling bullshit, because I can read the Bible and you can read the Bible and David can read the Bible and Matt can read the Bible and James can read the Bible and you in the audience can read the Bible, every single one of you. And don't you tell me, as a reasonable human being, that we're not all going to come away with different things, affirming different things and casting off different things. Do not tell me. There's so much in that book that there is just no way. There's not. It's not possible. And even if you did, it still brings me back to the question, how do you justify what you're picking and why you're picking it?
Which is why I agree with Matt that if the debate...
Also, we're going to take questions. We've been doing this forever.
Oh, yeah, so we'll still talk for a minute. Start loading up your
at
questions.
Shannon Q or Super Chat, and we'll answer a few questions before we go. We've already been at this for, oh my God, almost 2 hours. Woo! Wow. We're sorry.
But,
or you're welcome. I don't know. Whichever side you fall on of that. I got my morals from eBay. That's funny. All right, go.
Which is actually why I was, like, that's why if you felt like this debate topic was what explains ethics, and ethics is merely how people do behave.
Right. I still don't think...
Then God doesn't explain why Christians in Alberta treat LGBT people differently than Christians in
They're not
California.
Real Christians is why, or they are.
Yeah, but
depending on who you talk
But both group think that the others aren't true Christians, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Or they are.
Yeah.
Depending on who you ask.
So that's why Matt is entirely correct, is that theism, like this, just the word theism explains nothing.
No, God, no.
Now, do you need it ontologically? Maybe. Whatever. I don't think so. I don't think moral truths exist. But that was not what Matt was debating. Matt was debating, does God belief help explain the behavior we see in the world? And it just doesn't. Or at least it doesn't explain it better than the idea that selfishly we all want our lives to be better. We don't all want our lives to be better, but most of us want our lives to be better. Mm-hmm. And even though we don't know because we're fallible, we don't always know the best way to make that happen. Yeah. Doesn't mean that wasn't what we were seeking.
Hey, I think there's an evolution denier in my chat.
Hey, neat.
Secular humanism is speciesism, since humans are just another evolved animal, unintended result of supposed chemical accidents once upon a time. Yes.
But David was the one who admitted that objective morality, in his view, cared not about what the coronavirus did or cared not about what the squirrels do. Like, David's view of objective morality cared only what humans do.
Right. Yeah.
So that's...
Because we're special.
yeah, like what's more speciesism than that? At least secular humanism allows for ethical treatment of animals. I know the third draft of it has some language.
Yeah.
Regarding
I should
that.
have Alex on sometime to talk about that. I mean, I'm not a vegan, but he speaks about that stuff well.
Well, an ethical treatment of animals is also doesn't have to mean veganism. It can also.
It's an
just
interesting
mean-
way to explore moral standards too. I
It's
think
true.
when you look at how you should treat animals too, and why you have those standards for it. Like, maybe I should just. I'll still love bacon.
I forget. I think Alex also thinks we shouldn't have pets.
I don't know the answer to that. I would just be putting words in his mouth because I really legitimately.
Or
have
at least
no
I know
idea.
that's one section. Like I know there are vegans who have pets and vegans who don't, and some of their objections are similar. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's not of consequence.
Nope.
At all.
I didn't
to any
say
of this.
I didn't say any of those words.
Nope.
So anyone? I
Anybody
think
get questions?
We're
Oh,
done with the debate.
We're
for
done
now.
with, yeah. We'll answer some questions for a minute. If anybody has questions for Paul or myself related to this or unrelated to this, doesn't really matter.
Or
to
wants
me.
to be sad with me that the Oilers aren't playing right now.
Oh, well, people have bigger fish to fry than you're. We were working on distracting ourselves from
Oh, right.
that. Really?
Sorry.
Good job.
Nope.
Well done.
I didn't say
Twice
anything.
you've brought it up,
Who
so
likes,
well done.
Who likes the orange wall or the yellow wall?
Yeah, I feel like wanting to better our lives is to self-improve ourselves. Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. Because we start to analyze things more.
And of course, one doesn't need God to want things to be better. Right?
No,
Like, if
and
you
why
have-
appeal to the, like, it's appealing to the wall.
Right.
To me, it's just like saying I'm right because shut up. That's what I hear.
Like if I gave you,
Shut up, I'm right.
If I gave you a piece of cake, do you need God to tell you that a slightly bigger piece of cake might have been better? Like you don't need
No.
God for that.
Or worse, depending on your situation. Like
or
if
your
you're
goals, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like you don't need to wanting ourselves to be better. There's no questions coming in.
No, nobody has any questions for us. People don't care. People are sick of our nonsense because we've been doing this for 2 hours.
They probably asked questions before, like, "Why are you talking about this?"
Why don't you ever shut up, Shannon? Because Paul brought me 2 rums. And apparently that makes me talk a lot about morality. Shannon Q, are you an Edmontonian? I thought you were in Calgary. Paul lives in Calgary. He's leaving on a plane tomorrow to go at ridiculous o'clock in the morning to go back to Calgary. And we don't know when we'll see each other again. Maybe, who knows?
Thanks, Obama.
We
What?
You're a nightmare. We don't know. We have no idea. But I live in Nova Scotia, which is why I said Nova Scotia like that.
But I grew up
Midwest
closer to
of
Edmonton,
Canada.
and the Oilers were, a really, really good team when I was a boy.
You grew up in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
It's closer to Edmonton than here. Yeah, I'll give you that.
No, but so what I'm saying is, if they're confused about why I was an Oiler fan and living in Calgary,
Melissa says, Shannon, I'm broke now. Oh, well, Melissa, you don't need to send super chats. Towards the end, I always try to make sure that I can get people that don't send super chats. Well, I appreciate them. I do. Goodness, I do. I very much appreciate them. Maybe they'll help me figure out the sound. Probably not. I'm broke now. But do you think David was even qualified to debate morality? Okay, so, yeah.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. Especially if you're looking at it from our side. Like, you can't, if you're looking at it from our perspective, where it's a pragmatic, intellectual, social construct based on our understanding and study of how humans operate and function when they're interacting with each other, literally anybody that's now there's a billion questions.
So-
Literally anybody who is qualified to have this conversation. If you're a human in the human race, existing with other humans, who is capable of, and I don't even want to say capable of understanding these things, because you don't want to disqualify anybody who may be neurodivergent from not participating in these conversations and working towards understanding these concepts on a higher level, and their voices are of utmost. What I'm saying is everybody's voice is of utmost value when we're talking about how to interact with each other, and the more diverse that group of voices, the better it is. And I don't ever want to disqualify anybody for any reason from entering into that dialogue, especially somebody who is neurodivergent like David. Like, perhaps Christianity is what got him there, but maybe there's a rationalized rationalization analog that you can build on top of that in these conversations with him, like, absolutely.
But
of
all
course
that-
he's qualified. All that's to say yes.
But even worse than that.
Worse?
More than that. More beyond that. David Wood has a PhD in philosophy and teaches philosophy. I, 5 years ago, believed everything Kent Hovind said. So,
Right.
if anyone is qualified, he's more qualified. But as Shannon said, no one. I mean, I don't want everyone thinking David isn't is just he has education in this area.
And also, just because he's a psychopath and doesn't engage in the perception of reality in the same way as the average person, being neurodivergent doesn't disqualify anybody ever 100% of the time from these conversations. In fact, we need neurodivergent voices. We need them. We disqualify them too often for arbitrary reasons. So there should be more people on, more ASD people. There should be more people who have sociopathy. There should be more people who have schizophrenia. There should be more people with, anxiety disorders and depression. More of those people should be included in these dialogues more often. In all dialogues more often, because our societies are geared towards the centralized distribution on the curve and don't often take into account the people amongst us who we were not built towards, and on the contrary, actually kind of take advantage of those people and exploit those people or just forget those people. And the more people who are like David that are participating in these conversations, the better that we can understand other people who are neurodivergent and how they want to engage in society and what matters to them, and how we can incorporate them and better understand their needs within a society so that they don't hit people in the head with hammers. So
Right.
I'm very passionate about mental health awareness, and I'll rage about it for a while. Okay, so, but he misunderstood the Milgram experiment so hard. He really, that was my,
So
really, like,
I don't like to say motive, but again, when we listened to it super carefully and slowly, he slipped in enough to make it accurate. He just juxtaposed it to a conclusion that you would never come to.
Right.
Like when he was describing the experiment, he was careful to say when someone told them to.
Right.
He just he connected it to a conclusion that the study would never come to. So I don't know what to do with that. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, so we have more questions. I'm scrolling up to see the Shannon Qs. Question asker. Good. How are you both so awesome? Oh my God. I should have read that first because it seems really selfish that I read that. Your channels are very different, but you're both so good. Thank you. Oh, thanks. They are very different. We cover very different things, but
we're different people.
we are very different people. One of the things that's great about us and our relationship too is that we both improve each other because we have such different perspectives on what we're attempting to accomplish with our voice on these platforms. We are attuned to different things and help each other when we're looking at each other's content generation. So there's little pieces of my voice incidentally, I think, in Paul's channel, and there's little pieces of his voice incidentally in my channel because we spend so much time. What you guys just witnessed is essentially just this is just how we talk to each other all the time about this stuff. Pardon me. Oh, I have a 20-pound? Is that what that is?
Yep.
So thanks. Oh, Ricardo's here all the time. I should mod him. I would like to suggest making this a weekly thing. Do you guys think that David got on a vicious cycle about pragmatic ethics and just didn't let it go? Oh, Ricardo, I would adore making this a weekly thing. However, unfortunately, we live 6,000. I just hit you in the face.
It's not even a boop.
That wasn't a boop. This is a boop. I hit you in the face. I'm very, very sorry. But he lives, 6,000 kilometers away
Yep.
from me? Yeah, and he's leaving tomorrow morning at, I've got to drop him off at the airport at 5 a.m. So it's probably not plausible. And we don't know when we're going to get to see each other again. Hopefully Faithless Forum. Faithless Forum is still on as of right now in Texas in June, depending on what goes on with, the world and society at large. If that does happen, that'll be the next time we see each other, will be June. And if it doesn't happen, we don't know. So, we could maybe do this via Zoom, though, I suppose. Maybe. I won't be able to boop you. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, Dick Dawson. I'm going to go on Dick Dawson's channel tomorrow, actually. He's a channel called The Shills. I'm going on there tomorrow. I'm picking out the good ones, eh? Clearly not. What was the one point in the debate that drove you the craziest? You go first. And then I'll pick.
Well, I guess for me, actually, honestly, the point was I felt the moderator of the debate, James, needed to at least let the people debate the same topic. And I feel like he contributed to confusion around what the topic was being debated. So that drove me the craziest. It wasn't the crazy thing that happened. And I understand how it happens because, as Shannon said, these are words with very, very subtle differences. But that, for me, was most frustrating.
There's a lot of... I yelled a lot. I did a lot of yelling, and you did a lot of pacing.
Right. And we didn't even get to...
I yelled while he paced around the...
We didn't get to the weird Q&A, and there was all kinds of crazy questions in the Q&A.
Right. What frustrated me the most, before I found out about the Milgram experiment... Actually, that wasn't even frustrating. That was just perplexing, in bringing up the Milgram experiment. If you didn't see me talk about it, I don't have a timestamp for you. Just go back and rewatch the entire thing. Do it, because I need the watch hours. So just watch it all from the start. The Milgram experiment thing perplexed me the most. What frustrated me the most? I think the underlying assumption that if God isn't the source of morality, that was woven throughout the debate, that if God isn't the source of morality, we're all just gonna go around destroying each other. And you should be afraid of that, because God doesn't answer that question. Because it's essentially saying God would mandate that behavior, like would dictate that behavior, someone would control that behavior.
Right.
And if he doesn't, you should be scared.
And by extension, afraid of people who don't buy the same authority.
Right.
Yeah.
That frustrated me throughout. Perhaps I'm not articulating it well. I think if you take bits and pieces of what I said throughout this, maybe you can put together a cogent perspective. That could be your job. You can do that afterwards. You can take bits and pieces of me rambling about this and make it cogent.
The least frustrating part was Matt's suit jacket.
What I enjoyed too was Matt constantly just on his phone. The entire thing. I half contemplating sending him a message just to see if he would pick up. I should have, actually.
The most frustrating part was James putting stickers on his MacBook. Don't put stickers on your MacBook.
Put stickers on your MacBook. Go buy a sexual humanism sticker from my store and put that on your MacBook.
No.
And then write "fuck Paul" underneath it. Because he doesn't get to decide what you do with your MacBooks. Just saying. So, we have a super chat. We're a really happy couple. Basically, from Mike Mack, basically authoritarianism, and we are left to explain.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Yep. It's like, this is the rules. Figure out why they're good. It's crazy. Dick Dawson. Nice choices, guys. Love it. Thank you. We appreciate you, Dick Dawson. I'll scroll back up because I think there was some questions I missed, and then we'll...
I feel like we made bad choices. I don't know what's going on here.
Well, what do you mean bad choices? What are you talking about? We made good choices, and what frustrated us most about... You asked the question...
Oh, I see. Okay.
What, like life choices?
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I did. I don't know about you. Love you. It's okay. I was just kidding. I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about everything else that I did right up until the point that I met you, and then I made a good life choice. That's what I was talking about. ever looked into meta ethics? This is from Dan the Machine. That's an amazing name. Do you ever watch The Machine? What's the name of the comic that does The Machine? I'm not going to remember it. It's really funny. Look up The Machine. It's a community that does it. There's a lot there to address the morality stuff. Ever look at meta ethics?
Yeah, meta ethics gets confused with ontology. Morality ontology. So I do think meta-ethics is a thing. I do think that's what Matt was attempting to address, was some level of explaining when he was talking about the nature of the universe in particular dictates to us what is better. Like in terms of, healthy food, it helps us live longer than other food, for example. Anyway, that's enough.
No, I wasn't trying to distract from you. I'm just putting my Neil 604 Atheist sticker here because now I'm promoting stickers. That's Neil.
Yeah, look at it not on a Mac.
Put it on your MacBook. I didn't. I'm not adept in philosophy at all. Not even a little bit. I try. I'm interested in it. But I'm not adept. You get frustrated when I say I'm not smart, though, so you're probably mad at me now.
Yeah.
He does.
Shannon,
he gets really mad at me.
What Shannon is not big on, and that's fine, is she's not big on labels and then carrying forth from having conversations that are based on people labeling themselves.
No, because I don't think it's useful.
Right. And unfortunately, philosophy discussions that you've witnessed, not that all do, but you've witnessed a lot that...
They devolve into pedantry and deciding who is ascribed what label without actually getting into what's interesting about the concept that should be being discussed. So I find it frustrating. So much so I did an entire video on it early on in my channel called Always Check the Label.
Right.
Which has next to no views because I only had like 2,000 subscribers, I think, when I did it. But I meant everything I said in that video.
Maybe there'll be
it frustrated the crap out of me. Maybe.
Later.
I'm not gonna. I have to drive somebody to the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh, check my Discord. Okay, I will check my Discord. Yeah. I have a Discord server and a Patreon and Twitter. Don't follow me on Twitter. I can't stress that enough. Don't follow me follow Paul on Twitter. Don't follow me.
If you have Twitter, follow Shannon, but delete your Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter. It's a mistake. You'd be making a mistake. Don't do it. Trevor, 4 downvotes. Aw, I can't blame them. Why wouldn't you downvote this? We're awful.
It's because Shannon has to share the screen with some guy.
Look how cute he is, though. He's like, boop. He loves being booped. Must be from some Darth Dawkins saga. If you haven't watched me talk to Darth Dawkins, don't do that either. Good call.
That will not be linked up in the corner.
It will not be linked up in the corner. Don't do it. That's a mistake. Oh, goodness. We've been at this for 2 hours.
Okay, well then.
We should probably go to bed and stuff. I'm very amped up right now, though, because, like, whenever I come off a stream, people don't need to hear this stuff. I'm a bad YouTuber. Bad YouTuber. I'm sorry. All right. So if you would like to see more of Paul, you can go to Paulogia. That is his channel where he does good content. That is good. I am Shannon Q. If you're not subscribed to this channel, that's a solid choice, but I would like it if you did anyway. And also I have a Patreon and Twitter and do whatever you want. I'm so good at this. I'm really good. And 2 rums is apparently my limit on a Thursday night.
End card.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Help elevate the discourse. I don't have music, so we'll just stare at this. Look, guys, there's an end card here. I have to keep it up for almost a minute. So
just 20 seconds.
Just 20 seconds? Are you counting?
No.
You should probably count now.
10,
9,
8, 7.
Quality content.
Click on the link.
Quality content.
Click on subscribe.
Watch my next video.
Done.
It's really good.